Can you talk?
No, I forgot how.
Okay. It's picking up your audio. Good.
Oh, damn it. I thought I was just speaking with my mind.
So I'm here with Big Spoon to talk about the first chapter, The Voice of Reason, and the first flashback story with the Striga. So hi, Big Spoon.
Hi, Rawrast.
Rawrast. First off, you have never played any of the Witcher video games, correct?
No, I didn't even really know what The Witcher was until
Until
you didn't really force it on me. Like, you said, hey, I'm reading these series. And I was like, oh, well, I've already read the Kingkiller Chronicles, so definitely read that. And sure enough, that's the one you have paid the least attention to, you asshole. Second of all, I was like, I don't really want to watch Dune. Read Dune. I watched Dune, the first make of Dune way back in the day, and I own it. And I mean, it's a good series, but like the whole world didn't appeal to me too much. So I was like,
I hate all the names. I hate all the complex names.
Well, we're not talking about Dune, so
Sorry,
I'll let you do your own thing with that.
But I love Dune.
So well, I know you do. So anyway, like I was like, okay, well, Sanderson doesn't have any new material I'm interested in out, and Kingkiller Chronicles isn't finished yet, so I don't really have anything to read right now, and I need something, so I'm gonna give this Witcher thing a try. Because, I mean, I kind of heard about it beforehand because I heard that people loved cosplaying the character and whatnot, but I didn't really know much beyond that. And I knew it was a game, but that was about it. So after reading it, I was like, wow, this first story was actually pretty good. And I mean, the first story, I don't really think that has any parallels to a fairy tale. I don't think.
I mean, Striga in general was anything that was cursed to become like a demon or a monster. So it does have...
I mean, it has fantasy.
Roots in our own world storytelling.
Yeah, but it's not
like Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, it's not like that. So anyway, I really enjoyed the story. It was, the first one was pretty cool, and I like the way they tell it too. It's like, it really does feel like you're doing, like a Bond mission or something where there's like this big build up where Bond, hears the story from a bunch of different characters and like goes out and does some digging, so he has all the information he needs to foil the bad guy at the end. So it's like, I liked it because like it wasn't just like tons of action and like crazy jumping around killing stuff. There was a lot more build up and a lot more like storytelling and like figuring out the why to the madness. And of course, I mean, it starts off right off the bat with like, I mean, you knew it was going to be a good book because, like, the first... it wasn't really a chapter. I guess the first interlude...
It was like 2 pages.
It was, like, first 2 pages, and then, like, the first 2 pages of the book, oh, look, Witcher's getting sex. Lucky guy.
I like how you don't even know it's... You assume it's Geralt, and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
I didn't even know who it was at that point, because, like, I just started reading the book, and I was like, okay, this guy's getting sex the first 2 pages of the book. Lucky guy. All right, now we're going to move on to him doing other stuff, and that's when they actually introduce his character.
So in The Voice of Reason, Chapter 1, did you really not know that was Geralt that woman was sleeping with?
I mean, I didn't have any idea right off the bat, because, like, I mean, basically the chapter starts off with, oh, hey, there's this woman who jumps on this man, and then they have sex. It was pretty hot, don't get me wrong, but, like,
They hardly described anything. How was that hot?
I mean, it was... It was very
now
good.
I'm opening to this first page to see if there was anything
hot. It was like pretty much like every man's fantasy. He's just kind of laying there in a nice little sleep, and some like hot woman comes up and then fucks him. I mean, I thought it was pretty hot. It was a good like set the scene. I mean, given it was like softcore, but whatever.
I mean, all right. So I guess here she leaned over and touched his eyelids, cheeks, and lips with the tips of her breasts. Okay, I think you got a little bit. Let's see if there's anything on the back end of it. Demanded. With a light but decisive movement of her hips, demanded a response. He responded. Okay, you're right. There was a little bit, I guess.
And that's how it starts off. There's no names, nothing. It's just like some random woman like jumps into bed with a man, and he's clearly not expecting it. But it's fun surprise sex.
You surprise boobs and surprise sex. I do not know.
I likes it. You know what? That's literally what it was. It was surprise sex. But yeah, I had no idea who it was at that point. You got to understand, like, I didn't even know what a Witcher was until I started reading this book. You suggested it to me, and I was like, damn, this is cool. So I had no idea who Geralt was. I mean, I didn't play the games, so, you know, to me it was just some random guy getting sex. And then I found out who Geralt was, 5 pages later?
Yeah, he doesn't introduce himself until...
Yeah, I mean, he even the next scene, he walks into the bar, and, he sits down and says, beer, and then they immediately start trying to be racist to him and tell him to get the hell out of there, and then he just beats the shit out of him. It's great.
Okay, out of the 2 inns, there's only 2 inns. He went to the seedier one, and then he went in there with a Rivian accent. Of course they were going to be racist towards them.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Good comes from Rivia.
Yeah, I guess. And the problem was they were probably already 3 sheets to the wind, so... I would say I bet they'd learn their lesson, but, I mean, I think they're all dead. Or at least half dead.
Half dead? Not quite dead.
Who knows?
Well, 3 of them were killed, I believe.
Okay, and I think there was only 3 of them. I could be wrong.
I like the introduction, though. You see how much of a badass he is. Because, I mean, later we figure out in the chapter that he purposely, did what he did to start a fight to get the attention of Faltus and Velarad. But the fucking fight where he slashes them and then, he even, before you know it, has a dagger coming out of his boot. You know how some authors introduce the hair color or eye color of a character and they do it, in an obnoxious way, he looked into a mirror, or she looked into a mirror and saw her blonde hair, and it gleamed like the sun, and her eyes were like jewel. Instead, I like how the author introduces parts of his physical nature, like this line, the stranger was not old, but his hair was almost entirely white, and beneath his coat he wore a worn leather jerkin laced up at the neck and shoulders. And then, so we're getting descriptions of him without it being super obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
I think most authors fall into. I remember first reading this and then reading the part where the innkeeper noticed how he was carrying the sword. So, as he took off his coat, those around him noticed that he carried a sword. Not something unusual in itself. But no one carried a sword strapped to his back as if it was a bow or a quiver.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It is kind of really weird. So.
Well, the fact that he carries it back there, he was still fast enough to get the drop on them and then pull the dagger out of his boot. You really get the sense in the first couple pages. Do you know the thing they say, show, don't tell? They show us or the author shows us what to expect out of Geralt instead of, he had trained for this many years and just, or,
Yeah, it shows his level of expertise much better than, just saying, oh, he did all this training, because,
or the innkeeper.
Yeah.
Right, came up to him and said, oh, I know you. You're a witcher, and you trained for this many years, and oh, you have these abilities. Instead, the author just shows us these abilities instead of just telling us.
Yeah, he's great at getting women into his bed, and he's great at basically kicking the shit out of a bunch of people, because it's hard to fight more than one person. 2 people is a struggle, and he just, manhandled basically 3 people. It was ridiculous. So.
And then we get to see that, he has some magical ability. We don't quite know as much when he uses the complicated sign in the air and has the guards follow him. So then you also see he uses magic. So we know by just a few pages into this flashback story, a little bit of what he looks like, the fact that he is amazing in combat, and he knows a little bit of magic, and he doesn't look old, but he has white hair.
Yeah, he's a battlecaster. It's great.
A battlecaster?
Yeah, he's a fighter, and he's like a multi-classed fighter wizard, basically. Although probably more like fighter warlock. Anyway.
Actually, no, that's a good cover. What would a Witcher be in Pathfinder? So...
I don't know enough about his spellcasting to be able to describe
so
that.
So basically,
but...
he can create signs. It's like the most basic thing. Like, Witchers don't do the complicated things of harnessing, turning chaos into magic, which is Have you gotten that far in the books?
No, not yet.
Okay.
That was mentioned in the trailer, but that's about the extent of what I understand.
Yeah, so they harness chaos and they turn it into magic. So pretty much anyone can do the most basic of signs. Oh, a lot of people can.
But later on, I feel like they mentioned that it's illegal to try to cast magic.
It depends where you're at.
Okay. I feel like in this chapter later on, they accused him of casting magic.
Witchers don't study magic, like how it works and all that. They just know certain signs, and they just know that the force of their will and the complicated signs. So if a Witcher's hands were bound, he wouldn't be able to do the signs. So they know very minimal magic, but it's their signs and stuff to do things.
Okay, yeah, so I wouldn't really be able to say what kind of D&D class that would be. I mean, you'd almost want to say it's something more simple like a ranger where they can fight, but they also have the ability to cast some spells. Now, it's not quite a ranger because I imagine the spells that Geralt can cast are not, forest-oriented like rangers are, but it would be something similar to that. Like an epic battlist fighter, or an epic fighter with the ability to cast minimal spells.
Okay. Alright. I'll go with that. Because I was trying to think about what he exactly would be.
Yeah, I don't think there's an exact. I think it's closest to like a ranger, but it's not quite.
And it wouldn't be a paladin?
I mean, it could be something like a paladin, but I mean, from the few spells that I've seen so far, it seems like the majority of them are almost like enchantments. And there is no class out there that I know of. I mean, there's probably a prestige class or something weird, but there's no like base class that I know of that has really strong fighting ability with a little bit of an enchantment magic.
Did you know that there is a Witcher role-playing game?
Of course there is. There's a role-playing game for anything out there. Did you know that there's a Mistborn role-playing game? Did you know that there is... What's that other series I read recently? I'm not sure. They pretty much, like, if there's any book that's, like, a big enough hit, there's a role-playing game about it. Firefly. There's a Firefly role-playing game. You can find them. They weren't published very much, but they're all out there.
Dang, I kind of want to, like, play a game of it.
I feel like I need to finish the book, at least this book, before I want to know, or play a game in it, because I know there's a lot that I don't know yet.
All right.
But I will take you up on that.
Shouldn't have said that. I have a recording of you saying you're going to do it.
Well, you haven't roleplayed in a long time, so I think it's about time.
Yeah. I mean, well, Gloomhaven's kind of role-playing at this point.
I mean, it's like role-playing light. I mean, I'm not knocking Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is the best board game I've ever played. I absolutely love it. And, I mean, Raris will tell you, like, I try to get her to play it all the time. And she says...
Even when I want to play other board games!
And she says, no, let's play a Time Stories. And I'm like, no, Gloomhaven! So, I have a very one-track mind.
Okay, here's the thing. If you're going to force me to put on clothes and leave the security of my home to go somewhere to play a game, sometimes I want to play some Betrayal.
I didn't say you had to put on clothes to go.
Oh, you...
Alright, so anyway, then we go to Velrod. Is that his name?
Yeah, Velrod.
Velrod. We go to Velrod in his keep, I guess. He tries to figure out what's going on with Geralt before he puts him in front of the king. And obviously he knows a lot more about witchers and whatnot because he's not afraid of him.
He is afraid of him.
Well,
he's like, he didn't want to be alone with the white-haired guy, and he was also like, can you not get so close to me, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he was a little afraid of him, but on the same token, he also was more willing to talk than a lot of other people, because a lot of people just showed downright fear or racism towards him, whereas I feel like Valorad was at least willing to hear him out.
Yeah. Well, that's what he wanted. He wanted to intrigue Valorad Falstus into a meeting so he could get stuff done. That was his point with killing 3 people. He wanted to be intriguing to them.
Yeah.
And they get that. Like, they understand, okay, this is what the dude's doing. And then once they see him, okay, this isn't just a normal thug or bandit or whatever. This is a dude who's highly skilled and, oh, he's a witcher. Okay.
Yeah, because then he immediately goes into, oh, you must be here for the king's daughter. And then, says, do you know about what the king is asking for you to do? And Geralt says, well, basically, from what I remember, he was like, I understand the gist of it, but I need more details. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just when he goes to the backstory of Faltus sleeping with his sister Ada, and then once he knocks her up, wanting to marry her, and then they dissuaded her, and, Valorad's telling the whole thing, and he's like, well, thankfully she and the child died during childbirth. So, and it's funny that we're in a world where magic and curses are so commonplace, but then we still see the superstitions of, like, even he believed there's gonna be no way to cure her because she became a Striga because her siblings fucked her and she was a product of incest. And there's people that legitimately believe that, instead of going, oh, okay, maybe that pissed off somebody and they cursed Ada and the child. Like, they honestly believe it's from... So even when they know, they're like, nah, let's be superstitious and say, the gods didn't like you fucking your sister. It's just weird.
Well, I mean, in medieval times, like, people all the time were very, very, what's the right word here? In medieval times, people were very superstitious all the time, and they always attributed weird things to magic. And, I mean, that's kind of what Geralt's position is. He's in the know. He understands how all these things work, and that's why, even though Valorad was basically just trying to push him off and saying that there's no hope and maybe you can at least get some money out of the situation, he's like, no, I want details. Tell me all the things that you know, because I want to know if I can legitimately fix this or not. And I feel like he got a good majority of the details from him, and then moves on to Falstus and gets the rest of the details.
Yeah, and the miller who had the scurry. We were saying in medieval times, but we still do that. Like, think about when a kid dies. Oh, well, God, it had a plan, had a reason. Like, we always try to attribute terrible things to some sort of, like, higher power, instead of being like, well, no, maybe someone was just a fucking dick. Sometimes you're just a dick. Yeah, I liked how then he went on
Was that a Cartman voice?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know half the things. I say things, you'll notice, like, even in videos I make, I'll say something for a while, and then I'll never say it again. It'll be like a month or two in videos. It's just, for some reason, sometimes I get something in my head, and I say it a lot, and then...
Either like a voice, like a specialized voice, or like a phrase or a word, and then it just disappears.
And then it's just gone.
I mean, that's basically what a fad is, right?
Well, okay, so I have fads with myself.
Yeah.
That I go through.
Well, I imagine that sitting there talking into a camera all day is, well, not all day, but, talking into a camera is a fun way to develop some little crazies.
Yeah, it's also kind of weird, because I remember when first being in front of the camera, it was so awkward. It was so awkward. But then you get so used to talking by yourself that there have been times I've been hanging out with other people and they're talking about something and I'm like by myself making weird noises or like saying something and I'm like, dude, you're in the company of others. Like, you're not alone in front of a camera anymore. Like, fucking stop. Like,
somebody needs to make a series, a life in the day of YouTubers to show like how crazy YouTubers really are.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, we love you. So I really loved King Faustus because like they did a really good job showing that he was, you know, a legitimate. Yeah, he knew things. He knew how the general world worked, but he was a legitimate like king who was raised as a king, and he got what he wanted, and that was it. Like he even straight up says to Geralt, "Hey, I understand that if you need to kill my daughter or to save yourself, that's a thing, because
I just want you to try."
Yeah, I want you to try, and I believe that it's hopeless at this point anyway. But please understand that if you do that, I'm not going to pay you, and I'm going to throw you out and have you run out of the city. So he's like a little king still throwing a temper tantrum, but I absolutely love it because like I imagine that's how kings are. They're like, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, and I am the king, and I am the boss, and I don't care that this is well beyond my my knowledge. I still am the one in charge here.
You're actually gonna really like the next book if that's like your thing. But so what I really like about Faustus is just everything you said. He is a really good king. He's smart. He knows what they're doing. He knows what his people are doing behind his back. So he knows that, you know, yeah, you're getting paid a little bit to maybe take out my daughter. I want you to try. That's all I want. And then if you have to kill her, or even if you realize it's a hopeless case, take care of it. But at the same time, it's kind of like how they made you, some people, I never did, really feel for Jaime and Cersei being in love in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
like
I get it. Like, I mean, honestly, for me, Jaime, because I didn't really believe their love in the show. Like, I didn't get it. I thought it was weird and a little bit forced. Because, like, Jaime was like, okay, fuck you, I'm done. And then he goes off with Brienne. And then suddenly, like, nope, going back to my sister. But, like, I would say a better example is, like, Jaime and Cersei as characters. Like, you read the book and, like, Cersei's batshit crazy. And then you get to her point of views finally. And you're like, oh, I thought she was batshit crazy, but no, she's really batshit crazy. Like, she's another level of batshit crazy. And then there's Jaime. I thought Jaime was an asshole. And then, like, I started reading it, and I'm like, oh, no, that's just like one of my friends from high school. He's, like, has this overinflated ego of himself, and he just tries to act awesome at all times, but in reality, he's just as insecure as everyone else and has his own issues. And is trying to do what's right by him. So, you know, I related a lot more to Jaime's character, and that's why I liked him. And I know you still hate him anyway, but, you know, I felt like he was somewhat redeemed.
You know, that I, as a person, have a hard time with redemption and what exactly is deserving of that.
Yeah, but nobody's black and white. Everyone is gray.
So what I really like about Faustus is he is a good king. He knows what his people are doing behind his back. So he knows that they're paying people to just kill her and be done with it. But I like that he also genuinely, you see that he loved his sister. So we're meant to think, ew, incest, blah, blah, blah. He slept with his sister, you know, but I was saying that some people are okay with that, and I feel like Game of Thrones has made that a lot more acceptable because of Jaime and Cersei. But this isn't a dude who just is a total fucking vile creep who just wanted to fuck his sister and fuck every single woman. You can see that he's throwing away photos or art done of other women, and that he still hasn't remarried, and he loves his daughter, and he wants his daughter back, and the only thing he has left of his sister. So you see this man where you're like, okay, yeah, you boned your sister, and our immediate reaction is to go, ew, but you see that he did love her, he did care for their daughter, and he was a good king and willing to let go of Ada and their daughter Ada if he had to for his kingdom.
Right. But, I mean, incest was a little more, I guess, accepted in royal communities, I thought.
Not
siblings, but because I know cousins.
It's degrees of kinship.
Okay.
And I did a whole video on this because people weren't understanding, not in a negative way, it's just, you know, if you don't study history and stuff, you don't understand degrees of kinship. And when I'd be talking about why it wasn't okay for siblings, people will go, oh, well, it's okay because, you know, the Starks married first cousins. And I'm like, well, a lot of people married first cousins. First cousins is an okay degree of kinship. Niece to uncle, nephew to aunt is a degree of kinship that is okay under certain circumstances. So that would be the next thing. People would be like, well, there was this time that a half-uncle married their niece in the Starks. And it's like, well, yes, that was a special time period. That was an exception. That wasn't
the usual.
Yeah.
Norm. Yeah.
So, first cousin, okay. Brother and sister, not okay. And that's why they threw a hissy fit with the Targaryens and they had to make the rule where...
And that's why so many Targaryens were fucked up.
Yeah. So, okay, so I dated this guy. And... I'm not going to go into his profession or whatever, but he went to a professional graduate school. And one of the first things they did in one of his classes is they asked a question. And the question was, you're taking people that the clients are a brother and a sister and they're married. How do you, and let's say they could get married, you know, do you take them on as clients? And he asked me that question, and my response was, why do I care if they're brother and sister? Do they love each other? I would prefer for them not to have kids with each other because of the genetic possibilities, but are they two adults? Yeah, I don't care. And he said, out of his entire class, and I think it was like, oh God, I think it was 100 or more, he said everyone was disgusted, and they're just like, ugh. And he's like, I was the only one he's ever asked that question to where there wasn't revulsion on my face. And I was like, then that leads to I'm like, no, I've never fucked my brother. Like, I would never think to fuck my brother personally. But for me, I don't give a shit if you're a consenting adult. But that is a taboo. And I think that's what the author was trying to do. Because most people, when they read, oh, siblings are fucking each other, their response is, oh my God, that's grotesque, blah, blah, blah. Where I'm just like, if you're an adult, I don't give a fuck what you do. Just don't murder and kill and rape. You do you, buddy.
I still think it's a little weird to grow up with somebody your entire lives and then, develop romantic relation with them. I mean, who knows? Maybe they were getting it on from when they were like little kids, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting because I could not think of a single blood or non-blood relative, anyone that's been married into the family that I perceived as attractive. I mean, I can objectively look back and go, yeah, okay, I understand why a lot of people want to date you. I can see how you would be a catch. But I don't have any romantic feelings or any feelings of, ooh, you're hot. So from that point of view, yeah, I don't understand.
But I'm not even saying relatives, because like you can legitimately think that your cousins are attractive because, I mean, they're people, if you look at like a frame of reference, they are people that are in your lives maybe a couple of times a year. I mean, or a few times a year. They're not like constantly in front of you. It's a completely different thing. Like when I stop back and think, okay, I grew up with my sister. She was in my life every single day. She was a pain in my ass every single day. And, we fought a lot. And, like, I just can't imagine ever developing romantic feelings for her. It's like...
Well, I can't for my siblings either. But you also see some siblings that are very, very close.
Yeah.
I think it's just... I don't think it really happens that often.
No.
But when it does happen, as long as you're adults, I don't care. When you're kids, yeah, maybe we need to be like, hey, this isn't normal. This is going to be a really hard life for you. You probably shouldn't have kids because of the genetic implications. But, yeah. But what I'm saying with this is we are made to feel, ooh, this is uncomfortable. These two siblings were sleeping with each other. And you're made to think, okay, maybe this guy is just off his fucking rocker and he's a sicko. Like, that's how they set it up. And then once we meet him, the king, and we see what he's like, it's like, no, okay, you're a pretty rational, good ruler. It's just you genuinely loved your sister and you loved the child you guys had together and you want to save that child. And so it goes from, ew, the sicko to, oh, this is actually a man that loved a woman and loved his child and is willing to do anything to get it back. And all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, like, I understand where you're coming from.
And that's almost kind of like a parallel structure to how we meet Geralt. Because, like, he walks in this bar and it's like, ooh, you're this dirty scumbag from Rivia. You're this dirty scumbag from Rivia. Your kind aren't welcome here. And, like,
Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah, so they, like, kind of describe him as, like, this lowlander that, like, nobody wants around, and then he turns out to be this intelligent person who's incredibly well-trained and, you know, shows off his skills. So they kind of show a parallel structure there. Geralt bad, because he's, you know, from here and has done this. Oh, wait, no, he's actually good. And King bad, because he's done this. Oh, wait, no, he's actually good. So that's kind of neat how they do that. Because I never had any beef with the king. I guess it's because of Game of Thrones and I've been a little desensitized to it, but it's like, oh, he fucked his sister. That's awkward.
That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
That I think without Game of Thrones, there would be more of a strong reaction to this chapter of, ugh, but because of Game of Thrones, I think people are like, siblings fucking each other. Been there, done that.
Well, it's clearly a thing that's acceptable in royalty. So another part that I liked about that whole chapter was, or maybe it was the chapter before, it was kind of how they described, oh yeah, lots of Witchers have, so you get to see, like, not all, like, Geralt is exceptionally honorable, even among Witchers, because at first what they say is, oh yeah, lots of Witchers have come by here and they've decided they can't handle this, and it's just too much of a big deal, or they just disappear into the night. And then, after you're done with the whole conversation with Falstus, then you meet Ostrid in the middle of the woods, and he basically says, hey, guess what? You're going to be rich today. Here's 1,000 gold for you to just fuck off. Like...
Okay, I'm going to make the argument here, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. Is it because he's honorable and he's turning down Velarad and Geralt's turning down Ostrid? Or is it because 3,000 is more than 1,000? Like, he wants to get the job done and the full amount. I mean,
it could be a combination of both. He wants to get the job done and do the full amount. But on the same token, like, 3,000 is probably a lot of money. I'm just going to assume. So I'm not sure how, like, it never really says how the gold structure and all that works, but...
It changes depending on where you're at, but
yeah.
There are exchanges and stuff.
Okay, because what kind of I gathered is this chapter kind of goes right into all the interludes, right? This is, like, what happens right before the interludes, because, like, one of the interludes is them repairing his throat.
This flashback story, so there's 6 flashback stories. This one's be showing how he gets to the temple.
So this one is basically chronologically last.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
but it's written first. So that's the thing. It's like he goes to this temple and he seems like he's comfortable, but in later stories you're like, okay, he's like really scraping for money. But in this particular one, he seems like he's fairly comfortable. And, you know, he does make the joke about how if his neck takes so long to heal, he's going to have to basically, you know, run a whorehouse. But he, that's the thing. It looks like he's going to be fairly comfortable. And so I kind of gathered that 3,000 was a lot. But if 3,000 is a lot, 1,000 is still a pretty solid coin just for him to do nothing and not put himself in any danger and move on. So, like, I feel like he was still being honorable in fact that, I mean, a normal...
Imagine this. Imagine that, like, I'm a hired killer, and you hire me to say, okay, I need you to go kill my mother. And then I go, as I'm leaving, one of your subjects says, okay, I'll pay you a third of that, and say you're going to be giving me $3 million to kill your mother. Someone says, I'll give you $1 million if you just disappear and never come back, because I want everyone to think she's a monster. Okay, that's still a hell of a lot of money. I mean, but he says, no, I'm doing the job for her, because he got to know Falstus, and, he wanted to help Falstus because nobody else could. And plus, in addition to that, you could also argue that he was making an even bigger name for himself because all these other Witchers couldn't do it. So what I'm saying is, yes, there were some aspects where he did it because he wanted the money, he did it because he wanted the reputation, but on the same token, he also wanted to show that he was honorable, and I feel like a lot of other Witchers weren't. So it was cool that helped build up Geralt a little bit.
So you'll see Geralt as time goes on. There are monsters he won't kill no matter how much money you give him. You're right. I just was arguing with you just for the sake of...
Oh, I mean, this is a podcast. You're supposed to argue.
So there are monsters he won't kill for money. There are some things he won't do. So there's this, I guess, stigma on Witchers of just being these hired thugs, which they are. They're money to kill monsters, but Geralt has his own rules and things that he will and won't kill. And I also like that it shows a Witcher tried, a Witcher died trying to take care of the Striga. Some Witchers saw the monster and were like, fuck this, I'm out. And other ones were like, fuck this, if you don't want me to kill it, I'm going to keep moving on. So there are so many things in this first flashback story that are showing you just how much of a bamf and that he's different from other Witchers and
he's more honorable and he's more reputable and he's awesome. Yeah. I mean, they really do put Geralt up on a pedestal in this whole thing. So going back to Ostrid, it's funny because you can tell Ostrid has done this before and he's paid people off before. Because he's, absolutely baffled that Geralt doesn't take him up on his offer.
Yeah. And then he gets fucking pissed. He pulls out his sword, and then...
So, yeah, Ostrid is a courtier, so he's probably used to people treating him with more respect and more regard because he's essentially an advisor to the king. So he has a lot of power. So, I mean, that'd be like Maester Pycelle coming up to somebody and saying, hey, I want you to do this and here's money so you can go off and do it because the king is being dumb, and then saying, nah, fuck you, I'm going to do what the king says anyway. He'd be pissed. I mean, given he's an old shit, so he wouldn't do anything about it, but this guy's clearly playing the Game of Thrones, per se, and trying to oust Falstus. He's probably not used to people rejecting him, and especially with as much money as he was going to give Geralt, so he was like, fuck you, and then he drew his sword and was going to come at him. Unfortunately for him, Geralt had other ideas.
I also like that it shows us how smart he is, because Geralt figured out quickly what he was all about, what he was trying to do. He's like, here, I can explain to you what your plan is and why you want me to go away. So he's kind of seeming like the complete package in this chapter of intelligent, he is good at combat, he can do a little bit of magic, he has some compassion in him, you could argue, he's honorable, so... And
he's really trained to read people, because that's the big thing, you see multiple times that he doesn't do a lot of talking. And how do you get to know somebody better? By listening to them. And by seeing their tics. So, yeah, you can tell he is the full package here.
Also, fun fact. Maybe not a fun fact. So, how Ostrid sees him there, do you remember the end image or end footage of the Witcher trailer? Where Geralt looks up and he's corpse white. And
he has the black eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's the same potion that helps him see in the deepest, darkest. And they did it so well in the Netflix teaser, I guess it was a teaser, not a trailer, when he slowly looked up and you could just see the black of his eyes and the fucking chalk white face, and I was like, oh my god, that's from the chapter with the Striga. You literally get to read about it, and we're talking about it now, and they said they're going to throw a lot of surprises like that into, because it's adapted from the books, the Netflix TV series, but there's going to be a lot of surprises and things that they really drew from the book that they wanted us to see, and I'm so happy they put that shot in. It was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. But I love how, after he devises that ostrich plan, I love it how he then proceeds to knock him out when he comes at him, and then use him as bait. It's like, well, clearly you're working against the king, i.e. my client, and when I tell the king this is what happened, he's not going to care. He's going to be like, oh, thanks for showing the traitor in my midst. So, hey, look, I now have bait to help me take care of his daughter. So now he just killed two birds with one stone. He's gonna save the king's daughter, and he's gonna remove an evil person from the king. So the king is definitely gonna be happy with him.
Yeah, but Geralt doesn't really get into politics or...
So you're saying he literally just used him because he was a pawn in the area? I mean, that kind of creeps me out, because it's like, let's say there was some random farmer who happened to be walking by. Would have Geralt knocked him over the head and used him as bait?
No, I think he would have let him live, but it was because he decided to pull a weapon on him. He's like, all right, well, you just tried to attack me, so you forfeit.
Yeah, you're okay, I get that. So you're basically dead anyway because I would have killed you. But, I have a better use for killing you now. That makes sense.
Do you not find it sad, though, that Ostrich loved Ada, and in the video games, I told you this, in the video games, it's apparent that he did it. They make it, okay, he actually did it, but in the books, it's not clear-cut who did it. It could have been Falstus and Ada's mother.
Yeah, because he speculates about it a little bit.
Yeah, because he's like, did I do it, Witcher? Like, I only once, like... And, here is the thing. Here.
Yeah, I'm reading it here.
So, I know what you're thinking, but it wasn't like that. Believe me, I didn't cast any spells. I don't know anything about magic. Only once in anger did I say, only once. Witcher, are you listening? It's his mother, the old queen. It must be her. She couldn't watch him and Ada. It wasn't me. I only once, tried to persuade them. But Ada, Witcher, I was besotted and said, Witcher, was it me? Me?
And I mean, yeah,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it says the whole point of the magic in the world is like a strong enough will can create it. So it very well could have been him. It very well could have been the king or the queen. It's funny because The Witcher says something exactly. It doesn't matter who does it anymore. It happened. It's past.
Yeah, it's
now
in the
I'm
past.
dealing with the current situation.
Yeah.
And you're my bait, motherfucker.
So I will say the fight, I guess there's not a lot to talk about. We see him, use signs. We see him use his silver chain, which he has along with his silver sword. But you notice he doesn't draw it because he quickly sees the Striga can be saved. We saw the silver chain in the Netflix teaser, him using it, which I was really excited to see him use. I also like how he projects all her hate back onto her, and he's even shocked, like how much murderous frenzy and lust is within her, and yet he is still willing to save her.
Yeah, I mean, he does a job, and he does it very well. So I just thought the whole battle scene was really cool. Like it showed his finesse, because here he is going toe to toe with a monster that like most people, like they even had people go try to kill her, and she just like mutilated all of them. So he's like 10 steps above the average human. And here he is like going toe to toe with this absolute like abomination, and still able to not only like defend himself and, go toe to toe with it, but not kill it. Because I mean, it's one thing, you really see his finesse, because it's one thing where you go and you fight something and you kill it. That's easy to do. To defend yourself from something without killing it, that's a lot harder, because that means you need the control to not hurt it, as not like fatally wound it, as you're backing up and protecting yourself.
And that's why a lot of Witchers, when they learned we're not to kill it, they're like, oh, well, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to kill it, no, fuck you. I'm not risking my life to try to cure your kid.
Yeah.
Either give me the money to kill it or no. So.
And that makes sense. So, like, you really see that he's a step beyond most even other Witchers. So, he's awesome. We love Geralt. So, finally, he gets into the crypt and, like, makes it so the Striga can't get back. And then wakes up and all he sees is this little girl.
Well, 14-year-old
14-year-old girl. I mean, I guess that's a little bit older. So, but anyway, like, how did he not see the claws? Like...
Well, the third... I think because of how she was laying there and because he hadn't realized the third crowing hadn't happened. So she was still being transformed into a normal girl. And then at the last minute, he's like, oh, fuck, as she turns and
slashes his throat.
So he didn't realize that it wasn't exactly the right time and the transformation hadn't completely happened.
And I imagine his wits were a little dulled because they did say that he had like a somewhat of a headache and whatnot from the drugs that he took.
Yeah, he's really exhausted and out of it once the elixirs and stuff wear off. He definitely, he slows down, he's a lot more sluggish, and he gets tired.
Yeah, I would equate that to a hangover. You go out and you get blitzed with your friends, you're like all super hyped. Like when you're drunk, like, and like when I say drunk, I mean like wasted drunk, you feel like you are invincible even though you're not. And then, like, when you wake up the next morning and you don't drink a bunch of water that night before, oh my god, the hangover is miserable and you just feel so sluggish, everything hurts. So I imagine it's probably similar to that. It's like, he is just, like, destroyed and out of it and his brain is hazy, so he just walked up and he's like, yeah, she looks alright, and then checks the teeth and is like, okay, she's good. Doesn't even think to check the claws, and then whack!
Yeah. But you want to know...
And then he frickin' bites her throat.
Power
down. Play of dominance.
Calm down, Lemon.
Wouldn't have been my first choice. I probably would have backhanded her, but, you know, whatever. I guess that works.
And then the last little thing in the 8 part, we see that Velarad is talking with him, and Geralt is, do I have all my shit? Is she okay? Although I like the order in which he asks stuff. Like, the first is, like, my sword. Like, do I have my fucking shit? Like, this stuff is very important to... His Witcher sword is very important to him. And then he assures him, oh yeah, you have the money too. And then, of course, he wants to know about his neck. And then the princess, is the princess okay?
I love it how, the even better part is he keeps saying sword. And he's like, yes, you've been uttering sword for the past 2 days. 2? What? Yes, you've been out for 2 days. It's funny.
Man, you know where his mind is.
Yeah.
I love it.
After he finally gets through all of that, I feel like that's I have this great story where I took somebody to or somebody came with me when I got a procedure done, and apparently they told me after this I kept asking the doctor the same freaking questions over and over and over, and I imagine that's kind of what this was about. For those 2 days, he was like in and out of consciousness, and he'd come into consciousness and he'd be like, "Where's my sword?" And they'd be like, "It's right here." Oh, he's asleep again. So,
or it might be because I worked in the ER for a while, and it wasn't funny, but this guy was in a motorcycle accident, and he was banged up so bad, and his wife was next to him crying. First fucking thing he says when he wakes up, "How's my bike?" And the wife was her face went red, she started screaming. It was just like, this guy is so fucked up, and he wakes up, not about himself, not anything else. How's my bike?
So what you're saying is if I ever get severely injured, I need to see how my wife's doing first.
I would imagine so, because she might kill you if the first thing you do, you wake up and you're like, what about my toaster? Or
my toaster. Yeah. How's my car? No, I got it. All in all, really, though, I really did like this chapter. It really, showed Geralt as, an awesome character. Not just, I'm a super combat whore, but he also...
A super combat whore?
I know. Some people, that's all their characters are good for. But you saw that he was really awesome at combat. He was almost like an investigator, detective. He was very good at deducing the problem and figuring out whether it was something he could even handle or not, and what was realistic. And he was good at, to some extent, dealing with royalty. So you got to see like how well-rounded and great of a character he was, and you kind of started rooting for him. So it's like it was a great way to lay him out as a character, and I thought that the author did a really good job, even to some of the points you made with like better way of describing him. It wasn't like he looked in the mirror and saw his white hair and the innkeeper said no. Like he actually like came out with like this great battle scene that set the stage and showed him for who he was. So I would give this 2 thumbs up. Or you like to do dinosaurs, don't you?
Yeah.
So I would give it 8 dinosaurs.
8 out of 10 dinosaurs. I love it when people freak out that I do that. What I really like about this chapter is, like I said, good swordsman, knows how to use magic. You kind of see where he is at on the honorable scale. He's not like a total fucking rogue. We see how he gets ready for battle. We get to learn a little bit about magical creatures. We learn, about his elixirs too and what they do. So we also learn a little bit more about this world with how curses can happen and all that. I just feel like it was one of the best kind of flashbacks or chapters to start with to introduce people to the Witcher world. I think the author the fact that he decided, okay, this is the order I'm going to put it in is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Big Spoon, and we will be back to do chapter 2, where less sex happens, unfortunately.
Oh.
I know. No surprise boobies or
no
sex. No
surprise sex.